If you only acknowledge results, you are actually telling your people, I only care about the results and not the way in which you do that. Your job is to catch them getting it right and to say, I loved how you spoke to that client. You were so insightful, or whatever. Be deliberate about how you want to build recognition into your culture. There's always something that you as a leader should be able to spot and acknowledge, whether it's at an individual level or at a team or group level, that you can say, yep, this is what I'm wanting to reinforce.
Welcome to Leadership Rewired. Allison Allen and Dean Martin invite you to join them for an honest conversation that brings a personal perspective to the issues of leadership.
Today, we're talking about recognition, and we'll share with you ways that you as a leader can integrate recognition and some simple steps into your daily leadership practice, because we know it is a powerful way for you to inspire your people and to really get the best out of them. So recognition, that's what's on the ticket for today. But firstly, Allison, how are you? Where are you? What's going on?
Hey, folks, I am in San Francisco airport. I literally just flew in this morning from Vegas, and I'm on my way into the city, and I decided to pull over to a work area to do this podcast. I conducted a roundtable last week, and leaders are struggling. Something as simple as recognition isn't coming to mind for them. Change is hard. And right now, there's so much change going on outside of organizations, within organizations, and leaders, a lot of leaders are caught in the middle. Your power exists in your ability to influence your team. And a big way that you can do that is through recognition. And, and it literally can stabilize trust, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
How's your heart?
Well, it's good. I'm actually, look, you always hear me say this. I come back to like the sources of my energy, and that's my kids. I focus on them, and I was having a really great conversation with my son, and he was having a moment of spiraling into what's going on in the world and how to deal with it. I told him, you can't focus on the chaos. You can't take your eye off chaos, but it needs to be in your peripheral. If all you're doing is focusing on the chaos and the crazy, it's going to consume you. So focus on the things that you can influence and then bring you joy and make you happy. For my son, this is his school and his art. Keep the chaos in the peripheral, because we have to sort of be aware that there's crazy stuff happening so that we're not caught off guard, but it cannot consume your focus. What about you? How are things going for you, Dean?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I'm rocking and rolling. My heart is good.
Good.
I pay a lot of attention. I was saying to somebody the other day, I was like, it's quite hard, I'm single parenting my inner child. It's a lot of work. But yeah, no, I'm doing well. Shall we talk recognition?
Yeah. Let's start with the foundation. Why, basically, when you think about the foundation, why is recognition so critical? Why do people need it? I think what happens in the midst of change is that there's already so much uncertainty around. People don't know when the next shoe is going to drop. They don't know when the next program's going to get killed. They don't know when is the next layoff. And you as a leader become, in some respects, a stabilizer. When people are distracted on all the things and they're focused on so many things outside of themselves, you can be the person that can bring them back to, I see you, I see the work that you're doing, that thing that you worked on really helped move us forward. People are going to get distracted by all the things that are happening, but by just demonstrating the fact that you are recognizing that they are working hard and that they're doing the most, especially in a time when there's so much change, it's a stabilizer for them. That recognition is really about acknowledging people, giving people credit, acknowledging the team, acknowledging the incremental progress, which we'll talk about. That simple acknowledgement from you as the leader is very powerful, and it builds trust. I was thinking about a client that I've started working with. It's a small startup. Their whole strategy is growth by gobbling up other small startups. This leader asked me to come in and sort of put together a change plan and communications. One of the first things I noticed was how Everybody's exhausted. They're really not looking forward to the next merger and acquisition, but they recognize that that's the 2025 strategy. Gobble up all of the competitors who are losing money or losing people.
Mhm.
And I just said to the leader, how often do you say that one's done, great team, or while you're in the process of gobbling up all the other small startups, how do you acknowledge the progress? Is it in the progress? Is it at the end of the year in 2025? Is that when you're going to say, hey, we've won and this was amazing? Why don't you try in the middle of the merger and acquisition, or at the end, acknowledge the team and do some special shout outs? And so came into the room one of the next meetings. I'm sort of suspecting that people are thinking it's because I'm there and they're not necessarily seeing us as like he's doing this. But anyway, he came in and he dropped some recognition on the team and people felt supercharged by it. Some people felt skeptical and some people were looking around, but you could notice a shift in the energy simply because he acknowledged that people were killing themselves.
If you saying to somebody, well done, or I acknowledge this effort, how likely are people to really believe you as a leader? But I think if we get it right, and let's look at 4 ways in which we can do that as leaders, I think it really does develop trust in people that then has 1,000 other positive benefits on themselves and how they're doing their work.
The first step of any kind of recognition is being specific and timely. You don't want to say things to people as an individual or even as a team that feel like you're just spreading peanut butter. The first thing you want to think about is like, what's a specific moment? What's a specific action? Is it at the end of a roadmap completion? Is it a phase? Is it you notice something in a meeting? Being specific and timely starts to break away the skepticism. If it's sort of like random, people don't believe you, but you have to start somewhere. And I think for this leader, he was really trying to start somewhere.
So what I would add to that then is, and here I come with one of my favorite points about making something explicit. If you're listening now and you're thinking, okay, yeah, I could do a bit more of this, I can be specific and timely, and you reflect on your own practice and you think, I don't do it so much. Maybe the first thing you're going to do in your next meeting or in a one-to-one or when you're having a chat to somebody is to say words to the effect of, I know I typically don't notice this kind of thing, or maybe I've not said things like this in the past, but I really want to acknowledge it. I'm doing this because I do appreciate X, Y, and Z, so that they don't go, what the hell just happened to my manager? She's never said thank you in her life, and now she's telling me what a good project plan I created. This is weird. So signal the shift. I'm trying something different. And also in terms of specific and timely, let's look at the timely piece. Why do you think we want to give people recognition as soon after the fact they've done it as possible? What's important about that, Alison?
I think people in their head have natural moments when they feel like they've done something or when they've completed something. And there's something pretty powerful about when a leader also notices it too, right? So it's very easy when you have a project plan and you're going through different milestones or different phases and you complete a phase. Everybody kind of knows, oh, we completed the phase. Some acknowledgement of how well that was done or how it could be better is gratifying for a lot of people. If there's something that you notice that someone has done that's over the top or a little bit different or special, or in need of a correction. Sometimes recognition, by the way, can be feedback on how to get better. Those of us who are just like looking for any attention that we can get from our leader, we'll appreciate even a little bit of correction because that means you're paying attention. So the specific and timely is really about demonstrating, I'm noticing, I think this is important to say. I don't know if that makes sense.
As you were talking, I was thinking, I think one of 3 things can happen. If we're specific, it's not just a general, well done, Alison, on a lovely project plan.
Right.
But the fact that we've been specific, the first thing that could happen is you think you've done good work on something and the manager has noticed it, and then there's agreement. So we are rewarding and reinforcing the behaviors we want. The second thing that could happen is maybe you are unaware of the fact that you did it well. And the manager says, because you did that so well, because you were thinking about scalability or you were accurate or something, that then is new information for you. So you're being recognized, and that then raises your awareness of like, yes, I was thinking about scalability, or I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but yeah, you've got a good point. Third thing is the manager could acknowledge something that maybe is inaccurate. And that's a chance for you to say, actually, no, I wasn't the one who even worked on that project plan. I delegated that, or it was someone else. So whether there's agreement or there's a gap in agreement around what that good work was or what the specifics of it were, we get a chance to then still build that relationship and get closer to what's really happening. So that's
Right.
why we want it specific, so we can iron out those differences, and timely, so we can catch it early rather than a month later. I'm thinking you worked on that project plan and I have a perception of you about it. And you're like, no, it wasn't me, to someone else. So keep it specific, keep it timely.
Well, I was processing how I would feel if I got recognition for something and I didn't do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was coming to mind as you were saying that. Maybe I'm going to come back to that point. I think that would signal something else to someone if I got acknowledgement for something that I didn't do. Great. Do you know what I'm working on?
Correct.
Yeah. So I want to marinate on that one. The second step to think about is recognizing progress, not just outcomes. And that's kind of what I was saying earlier, which is a lot of leaders will look at the roadmap and at the end of the phase, going back to my original example around the mergers and acquisitions, it's okay to have a growth strategy. And this is a word that I use with this leader all the time. The gobbling up thing just in this environment feels wrong. But anyway, it's great to have a growth strategy and a perception of how you want to go after different pieces of business because it helps your bigger, broader plan. You can acknowledge at the end of each one of those acquisitions, but there's something about noticing how hard people are working or contributions during the progress. So I don't know what your thoughts are on progress, not just outcomes.
I'm a huge fan of it, because if you only acknowledge results, you are then actually telling your people, I only care about the results and not the way in which you do that. If we are acknowledging effort and progress, that's a chance for you as a leader to refine how people are getting to the results, instead of just sitting back and waiting and then saying, hooray, we got this big thing done and it took us 6 months. You have a chance each week or each month to say, I really love the fact that you've been tenacious in coming up with ways to meet with the client, reinforcing that good behavior. Or I love the fact that you have come up with this kind of creative strategy. This is successful. This is working. We haven't even gotten to the end yet, but I love these specific behaviors. You may not use that language, but so I think acknowledging the progress is essential. You actually selling yourself short, or, doing yourself out of a positive lever that you can pull with your people if you aren't doing that. If you're just waiting for the end, it's reinforcing. It's like praise. It's what's the behavior I want to see. I want more of that stuff. Back to what I was saying about being specific and timely. If you're specific in that, you are giving people almost fine tweaks to what they've done. Like, yes, you've pivoted 3 times. You've done a rewrite on how this thing is working. But I appreciate you taking that feedback on board. We're going to get to the results eventually. Keep going. And that's what you're rewarding.
I also think it's missed opportunities for yourself to really acknowledge progress. There is something about your weekly project meetings where you're catching up, or your roadmap meetings. Why not dedicate 5 minutes of that meeting to do some shout outs or acknowledgements of progress? A lot of people love team acknowledgements.
Yeah.
The next one is tying recognition to the bigger picture. What are your thoughts, Dean, on that?
Well, I think we can get so much more from our people and give them so much more if the recognition we give is tied to the bigger picture. Can I share with you a concrete example I was thinking of? Let's say you're leading user experience designer and they're creating something and you want to give them some recognition. So what would it look like if you were tying that recognition to the bigger picture? Step 1 would be to be ready to say, Hey, thanks, Bob, for your work on this. That was great. That's a bit mediocre, even though some people don't even do that at all. So that's why I'm giving it a step one. What would make it a little bit better? If it's specific and timely, maybe to say, Bob, I love it. You really worked hard on that product update. Lovely. Okay, that's a little bit better. But give me a bit more specificity. Bob's like, yeah, of course I did. What would make it a bit better? I can actually see that you've shared with me this work and I've had a look at what's going on in the back there. You've reduced checkout time for this product that we're creating for our clients. You reduced checkout time by 30%. So you've given some specific metric around it. I've really paid attention as a leader. That's making that recognition even better. If we really want to tie it to the bigger picture, we don't just stop there. And that alone, I think, would be wonderful to hear that. But to then say, and I appreciate this, what made it so good is, our big goal is to create products that have frustration-free transactions. That's one of our driving forces behind how we design. So you did a great product update, and in this example, it's 30% less checkout time, but this is actually what we're here to do. Bob's now like hearing that message again. And he also knows, my manager actually paid attention. And then we are reinforcing for somebody like, all those hours you spent, or the fact you had to redo it, or that we're doing it not just for the metrics or for the result, but this is also tying in to our purpose, which in this example is, these are kind of services or websites or products we create for our clients. I hope that helped almost like a step through.
No, I love the example. I think the example is perfect. And I think the only thing I would add is that sometimes people are working so hard on their piece of something when they don't know what it's tied back to. They almost feel like an island unto itself, right? And Dean's example is perfect because if I'm working on just this little piece and somehow you leader bridge that gap to a bigger outcome for our client, I now understand how integrated my piece is to the overall process. And you've made it clear that my piece of this project can either help us or hurt us. I thought it was perfect. Where would you go if I said that recognition needs to be tied to culture?
Let's build it in terms of thinking about what sort of culture are you intentionally creating? And I think about culture as the personality of the organization. What are the daily and repeated actions and the typical way in which this organization is working, or the culture of our team? And that is made up of tens of thousands of micro moments. If you think of somebody's personality and you said they were gregarious, there are 1,000 little ways in which you're left with that feeling. Or this culture is collaborative. There are thousands of tiny moments that make us think, yeah, that's the culture. So if you're wanting to drive a culture that recognizes people, that is able to then build trust, you then need to be doing this, thousands of times and looking for tiny moments where, again, this isn't just about praise. It is about being clear on, what are my people doing? Why are we doing it? Can I articulate? I loved what you said there. Can I bridge the gap between what they were doing and the results or the outcome or our purpose? In every interaction with any of your people, you have an opportunity to do what I would call recognition. It's not just like, well done, Alison, that was lovely. That's one form of recognition. In any one-to-one, when you're saying to somebody, hey, what you working on? Oh, I'm doing this, this, this. Oh, great. I had excellent feedback from that guy when you were speaking to him about this. I love the fact that you didn't just get the sale. You were really reinforcing our return on investment. That's a message we're trying to emphasize. And I heard you do that. How long did that take? It's a small way in which we are creating a culture where people go, my work is important. It contributes to the bigger picture. My manager sees it and they actually know the effort I'm putting in regardless of the results. What do you think? Are there other ways in which we can build it into culture?
Your explanation of how to build an culture is 100% on.
Yeah.
And I think that the only way that I would sort of add something to it is culture takes about 2 to 3 years. It certainly doesn't take that long to dismantle culture, but to set it up so that there's these routines,
Yeah.
it's about 2 years. And so if you're a leader who hasn't necessarily been recognizing people, I'm not saying you won't start to see it in the culture sooner than 2 years, but seriously baked in is about 2 years. If you're a leader who has not gone through a process of recognizing people, starting to do it will get you some results, but you won't actually start to see the results until you continuously do it. So you have to create a system around it. You can't just do it one time and, oh, it's done. People know that they're recognized and let's charge forward. It's really something that you're going to have to think about. Where do I want to acknowledge people?
Yes.
Is it in one-on-ones? Is it in team meetings? Is it in project meetings? Is it at a town hall? Is it at a quarterly meeting? Is it when I'm giving feedback? Do I want to acknowledge the good and balance that with some constructive feedback? Figure out what suits you as a leader and then put it into practice. And that practice will start to yield result, and the people who report to you, like leaders who report to you, will start to emulate what you're doing. And that is how you start to bring recognition into your culture. So it's exactly what you said, Dean, but I just wanted to offer that perspective as another frame of thinking about bringing it into culture.
Yeah, well, as you were saying, think about where you want to do it. And then you gave this list. I was just like, yep, do it in all of those places, but a self-audit as well, because you might say, yeah, I actually realize I do this quite a lot in one-to-ones. It comes naturally to me. I hardly ever do it in big team meetings, or I've never really told my manager about the good stuff my people are doing, or I haven't thought about a process. That's an opportunity for me. Or you might be more on the formal end as a leader. You might say, yeah, we've got a recognition program, but actually I can't remember when last I said to somebody, I noticed this thing and it was superb for these reasons. So you get a chance to do recognition in a way that is in keeping with you and your own style of leadership, and also branch out a little bit and say, where is there another opportunity for me to catch people doing things correctly? That's what I think recognition is. You're catching people doing it right, regardless of how competent somebody is or what their performance is, maybe even an underperformer. That person can't surely be underperforming in every single area. There's got to be something that you can say, I acknowledge you've put effort in, da, 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 da. There are other things we're working on, but there's always something that you as a leader should be able to spot and acknowledge, whether it's at an individual level or at a team or group level, that you can say, yep, this is what I'm wanting to reinforce, or this is what I'm wanting more of. By calling it out explicitly, I'm reinforcing that for people. I'm telling them I've noticed, and I'm telling them this is the right kind of behavior or the right sort of thinking that we need. So there's always a chance to do it more, or to do it a little bit more creatively with your people.
Let me wrap up the 4 suggestions we gave you guys. So we talked about being specific and timely, moments that matter. I love saying things like that because that is another way of frame it.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 would be recognizing the progress, not just the outcomes.
Yeah.
It's great to celebrate at the end of something major, but what about those moments that matter? What about those acknowledgments that you can actually make for someone on your team as you're heading toward the end goal? Making sure you are using specific moments to tie what someone is doing to a bigger picture. If I know that this thing that I'm working on is headed towards something bigger, I don't know, there's something pretty powerful about that. I remember when we were at Bloomberg, we all knew that the end state of Bloomberg is all about selling terminals so that Bloomberg can make money, so Mike Bloomberg can give it away. We knew that. That was like sort of the end state. In the leadership development team, we spent a lot of time working with leaders in strategic workshops, connecting the dots. We worked with the legal team, the IT team, the HR team. It was fascinating when you would be talking to some lawyer And I remember talking to a lawyer actually who was in my class. He's like, I lead the contracts team. I do contracts. That's what I do. And he's like, how do I help sell terminals? I said, okay, so who actually creates the contracts? He goes, we do. I said, who uses the contracts? He said, salespeople. I said, who do the salespeople talk to? He said, the clients. I said, clients are the ones who are doing what? And he goes, buying terminals. I said, oh,
Yeah.
so you create contracts that salespeople use, and the salespeople use the contracts with the clients who they're selling terminals to. I said, so what if we didn't have contracts? And then he goes, damn, how did you do that? And I said, okay, exactly. Do you want to know how I help people sell terminals? And he said, how? I said, you're in my class. And he went, what? I said, yeah, you're in my class. You're learning how to lead a team of people who produce contracts that salespeople use to put in front of clients to sell terminals. And he was just so, you could tell, empowered and not like this guy who was in the contracts team. It doesn't take a lot to help people fully understand. And then the last one is just making sure that, do you want to be a culture of recognition? Like, do you want to be a culture where recognition exists? And if so, how do you start to model that behavior and choose those moments? And then how do you ensure your leaders have what they need so that they can make sure that they're recognizing the people that report to them? Dean, do you want to say anything else, or do you want to close this out?
I'll do both with a closeout. Just, I would say, be the kind of leader that is generous with your recognition.
Love that.
This is not about being sort of peanut butter approach, spreading the same shit over everybody and not really differentiating. This is about being very clear on what the purpose is, like you just shared in that example, and what your people are doing. Recognize their efforts in a specific and timely way, but in a generous way. It doesn't take a year off your life to say to somebody, that was great. Even if you're like, well, that's his job. Yeah, it is his job. And you know what? Your job is to catch him getting it right and to say, I loved how you spoke to that client. You were so insightful. Be generous. Don't be a stingy leader when it comes to recognition. Be deliberate about how you want to build recognition into your culture, and let us know how it's going. Drop us a comment around some of the ways in which you formally or informally incorporate recognition into your leadership practice. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Alison. Nice to see you.
Thank you. And I think the key phrase is don't be a stingy leader.
Don't be a stingy leader.
I think that's what we should call this podcast. It was great seeing you, Dean. Love being on the podcast with you. Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.